Hey everybody, this is Anthony with VR Game Rankings. Welcome to episode 67. This is the daily vlog series for the VR Game Rankings YouTube channel, and it of course is January 2nd, 2018. And we do have some actual news for you guys today. It's been a while since we've actually had legitimate news stories, but today we do have some legitimate news stories. Now, none of this is earth-shattering, none of this is incredible or spectacular, but we do actually have some legitimate news, which is really nice because it has been a while, and I was wondering if we didn't have news today, what am I going to talk about? So it's a good thing that I do have some news to work with today. Now, what is the number one story on the docket? And the number one story is the Steam hardware results for December are in. Yes, Steam has a hardware survey that they run basically every month, and the results are in for December on VR headset usage. Now, the interesting thing here is that Steam/Valve has named the Oculus Rift as the most popular VR headset in the month of December. However, we don't really have like an actual explanation of how the Oculus Rift is known as this most popular VR headset in December. And if you look at the actual Steam hardware survey results, it wasn't the most popular VR headset in December, but we'll get to that in just a second. First, let's get into the actual numbers. Okay, so the HTC Vive has 47.26% of total VR usage. The Oculus Rift is 46.14. So basically, these guys are neck and neck. This is a photo finish. If you guys have ever been to the horse races and the horses are running around the track, and at the very end of the race, they don't know who won the race. It's a photo finish. They got to wait a couple minutes. They got to check the photos and see which horse has its nose a couple of centimeters ahead of the other horse. That's what this is. This is a photo finish. These two headsets are virtually neck and neck, less than 2 percentage points difference between the two, barely over a 1 point percentage difference between the two, and absolutely neck and neck. Now, the Microsoft mixed reality headsets are also on this chart as well. They have shown up with 4.35% of the HMD usage on Steam. So it's pretty much all HTC Vive, all Oculus Rift. Microsoft mixed reality has a little bit of representation there. But if you look at their 4.35% for the Microsoft mixed reality, the Oculus DK2 is more than half of that. So that doesn't bode very well for the Microsoft mixed reality headsets, although they've just barely got started, and Steam has only really been available for these mixed reality headsets for a short period of time. So this is kind of a brand new thing. Now, let's go back to this most popular VR headset deal. So why is the Oculus Rift the most popular VR headset? Upload VR had a story on this today, and they reached out to Valve, they reached out to Steam to say, can you explain why the Oculus Rift is the most popular VR headset? Now, they haven't heard anything back from that. I'm going to go ahead and speculate that even though the Vive has a greater percentage of total usage at that 47.26%, I believe that it's possible that Valve or Steam, it's possible that they discount some of this usage because it comes possibly from the arcade market or possibly from the Chinese market. Maybe they discount part of that. I don't know exactly what they're doing here, but obviously they're running the numbers a little bit differently to have the Oculus Rift as the most popular VR headset. Now, in the grand scheme of things, does any of this really matter? No, it doesn't. The console wars, like this console fanboyism, we really need to leave this off to the side. And the good news is, in a couple of years, topics like this are not going to be front page news because these headsets are essentially monitors, okay? How often do you go to a PC gaming news show and they're talking about which monitor was the #1 monitor in December? Nobody gives a damn, okay? And so eventually the headsets are going to be in that same kind of category. And it's not going to be about what headset you're using. No one's going to care about which particular headset you're using. But these are the early days of VR. And unfortunately, fanboyism has leaked its way into the VR market. And you have a lot of people that buy an HTC Vive and they feel like they're part of Team Vive and they want to root for Team Vive. You have a lot of people that buy the Oculus Rift. They feel like they're part of Team Rift and they want to root for the Oculus Rift. But the ultimate scenario here is these are basically just monitors, okay? We're playing Fallout 4 VR on our Rift, on our Vive, on Microsoft Mixed Reality. It doesn't matter. We're just enjoying this stuff, but I do need to report on it. I do need to be diligent in my reporting on it. So I am going to report on it, but there is a little bit of some concern that is going on the Vive subreddit that the Oculus Rift was named the most popular VR headset, and it's not really an issue. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so let's get past this whole fanboyism thing. Okay, so let's go to story number 2. Story number 2 is another Steam-related story, Valve-related story, and what this has to do with is the breakdown of the best-selling VR games by gross revenue. Valve/Steam has released this information for the year 2017. Now, we don't have exact numbers on how these games have sold, but what we do have is they broke it down into 4 different categories. And so they have the platinum category, the gold category, silver, and bronze. And so if your game ends up on any one of these categories, it's good news because you sold better than the rest of the VR games out there, especially if you're in the platinum category. If you're in the platinum category, you're up there with the heavy hitters. And so this is the best-selling VR games that are VR specific, okay? Not regular games that also work with VR or have a VR mode. This is very specifically the VR versions of these games. And so what I did here is I wrote down a list of all the platinum games. These are the best-selling games of 2017 on Steam, and I'm going to run these down real quick. Okay, so we have Hot Dogs, Horseshoes, and Hand Grenades, Fallout 4 VR, Arizona Sunshine, Rick and Morty Virtual Reality, Super Hot, Onward, Gorn, Space Pirate Trainer, Job Simulator, Raw Data, Audio Shield, and Tilt Brush. Those are the games that are in the platinum category. These are the best selling pure VR games on Steam. And there are a few things on this list that kind of jump out at me, and it's kind of like, wow, really? I didn't know that. The first one is Hot Dogs, Horseshoes, and Hand Grenades. Who knew that this game was selling so incredibly well? Now, of course, on the HTC Vive subreddit, even on the Oculus subreddit, pretty much anywhere you go for VR news and notes, you will hear recommendations for H3 VR, which is Hot Dogs, Horseshoes, and Hand Grenades. And a lot of VR gamers swear by this game. They've been very big fans of this game for a very long time. But I have to admit, I had no idea that it was selling that well, especially in the calendar year of 2017, because H3 VR is something I remember more from the year 2016. I know it was a pretty big game in the year 2016. I didn't know it was that big of a seller in 2017, but obviously it is. It is on this platinum chart with games like Fallout 4 VR and Arizona Sunshine and Raw Data. We know why those are there. Another one that is a bit surprising is Audio Shield. Although it's not really surprising. This is a game that has been widely recommended by so many people. It's kind of a rhythm action game. This is the kind of game that basically anybody can get into, and it's been highly recommended by so many VR gamers for so very long. And the thing that's interesting about Audio Shield, I believe it is basically developed by one single individual, Dylan Fitterer. And Dylan Fitterer might be a millionaire, okay? I don't know for sure that he is a millionaire, but he very well could be, based simply on the success of this one VR game. He created a great VR game. It got a lot of popularity. It sold very well in 2016, and it sold extremely well in 2017 to be listed on this platinum list with other games like Job Simulator and Space Pirate Trainer and Onward and Superhot, some of the biggest games in VR that we know of. So we got to give a lot of credit to Dylan Fitterer. He's done a great job, and he has reaped the benefits of his labor and probably is in the millionaire class. So that is pretty cool. That is pretty amazing. Do any of these other games jump out at me? Not really. I mean, a lot of it makes sense. Job Simulator, of course, is one of the best-selling games across all of VR and has been for years. Well, not years, but for a couple of years since it's been available. But it sells well on PlayStation VR. It's selling well on the Oculus Store. It's selling well on Steam. Job Simulator is one of the highest grossing VR games out there. That has done very well. And of course, Rick and Morty, which is kind of their follow-up, if you will. It's kind of a reskinning of Job Simulator with the Rick and Morty property. That has sold incredibly well also. So those are the platinum sellers. Tilt Brush is kind of interesting considering this was originally a pack-in, not really a game. It's more of an art type of a thing, more of a creative kind of a thing, but obviously it's selling well in the year 2017 because I don't think it was bundled with anything for free in 2017, so it is making its headway as a sold product and doing very well this year. Now, I also wanted to mention a handful of underdog games that also performed well that weren't they didn't make the platinum category, but they did make gold or silver. Dead Effect 2 VR has sold very well on the strength of word of mouth. This is one of those games that hit the Vive subreddit. So many people were recommending Dead Effect 2 VR. A lot of people say, look, if you like Doom 3 BFG with the VR mod, you're going to like Dead Effect 2 VR because it's incredibly similar, has great graphics, great sound, good gameplay, very visceral, very action-packed. So that game did quite well to end up in the gold category. Pavlov, another one. I'm almost surprised Pavlov wasn't in the platinum category, but Pavlov has done incredibly well for itself. You can get it for like $5 right now, I believe, on sale, or maybe a little bit less than $5. So the success is not that surprising. It has really garnered a lot of word of mouth as well. And you want to talk about word of mouth, 11 table tennis. How many times are you in a thread where somebody is saying, what are the best VR games out there? And a handful of people will mention 11 table tennis, and it has benefited from this in the year 2017, selling very well, ending up in their silver category for sales. To the Top is in the silver category. I'm glad to see Electric Hat Games do quite well with that. Iron Wolf VR has been a good seller as an underrated game. A Chair in a Room has sold good in 2017, which is kind of surprising considering this game is more of a 2016 game. This game was available right around, I believe, the launch of the HTC Vive. It's kind of surprising that it's had so much success in 2017, but I think a lot of that is word of mouth. And I'm not going to toot my own horn here, but VR Game Rankings has had A Chair in the Room ranked as the very best horror game that you could get for quite some time for a very large percentage of this year. And that may have helped it a little bit, you know, people going to VR Game Rankings, seeing that is considered the #1 horror game and thinking, I haven't heard of this one, let me try it. That could have possibly happened. So those are some of the underdog games that performed very well in this 2017 listing of the best-selling games. Okay, let's go to story number 3. Story number 3 is, are you a PlayStation VR owner? If you are, you might want to pay attention to this. If you haven't already picked up Skyrim VR or Doom VFR, there is a pretty good deal that is available at Newegg.com. You can go to Newegg and you can purchase Skyrim VR for the full price of $59.99, but you get a nice bonus thrown in. You get Doom VFR absolutely free. So it's a $30 value. So if you don't have either of these games and you have a PlayStation VR, you might want to consider this not a bad deal. Now, I do have to admit, though, that Skyrim VR has been on sale for a number of weeks at a $40 price point on PlayStation Network. Now, that deal has now ended. In fact, it ended very early this morning, so that is no longer available. Also, GameStop, the physical stores of GameStop, had physical copies of Skyrim VR that they were selling for $39.99 for quite some time. I don't believe that deal is still in effect either. So I believe both of these deals are over with. So now that those deals are no longer available, this is probably the best deal out there if you don't have either one of these games. I have to admit personally that if I could rent Doom VFR, for example, if I could go to my local Redbox and rent Doom VFR, I would absolutely rent Doom VFR. Unfortunately, I cannot go to my local Redbox and rent Doom VFR. The VR headsets just don't have that much popularity that they're going to put VR-only games in a Redbox machine. We haven't seen that at all yet. I could possibly sign up for something like GameFly, but I'm not going to do that for a single game. But I would like to try Doom VFR on PlayStation VR simply because it just doesn't run very well on my PC. So I'm not playing it on my PC. Wouldn't mind trying it out on PSVR just to get a feel for it over there, but probably won't be trying that anytime soon. Okay, another story we can get into is, now this comes from the world of science, and this story was on a website called phys.org, which is like physics.org or something like that, but it's phys.org, okay? And so this story is about metalenses. Now, what are metalenses? Metalenses are these flat surfaces that use nanostructures to focus light, okay? And metalenses have been around for some time now, but the problem is they were limited in the spectrum of light that they could focus. But a recent breakthrough has been made by a team of researchers at the Harvard John A. Paulson School of Engineering and Applied Sciences. They have developed the first single lens that can focus the entire spectrum of light, of visible light, including white light, in the same spot at a high resolution. Now, what does this have to do with VR and AR? Well, it has a lot to do with VR and AR, especially in the future as these things are made commercially available. Because one of the problems that we have right now in VR and AR is chromatic aberration, okay? And so the lenses that we're using are designed to try to prevent chromatic aberration as much as possible, but they only do a halfway decent job. They don't completely eliminate that. And it's caused because different colors of light have different wavelengths. For example, red and blue, the color red and the color blue have different wavelengths, and those lights will, that color will arrive at slightly different times, which causes chromatic aberration. Well, what they've been able to do with this engineering is they can now have these wavelengths arrive at the same exact time, so it completely eliminates chromatic aberration. Also, the only way that you could achieve this prior to this is stacking conventional lenses together to try to do this, and it makes them big, it makes them bulky, and so this is going to potentially reduce the size and the weight of VR headsets coming in the future. Now, how long is it going to take for this to filter its way into the consumer market? it could take a little bit of while here. So the Harvard Office of Technology Development, they have protected this intellectual property, this discovery, and they are looking into commercialization opportunities for this, but it's going to take time, because the thing that we have to understand here is the lens that they have created in this breakthrough is incredibly tiny. These are nanostructures, remember. They are hoping to scale the size of the lens up to 1 centimeter. So right now it's smaller than 1 centimeter. They're hoping to scale it up to 1 centimeter in diameter. And when they are able to do that, that could possibly open it up to VR and AR possibilities in the future. So I want to caution people. You hear a story like this, it sounds like this is an incredible breakthrough that could possibly really revolutionize VR and AR headsets. And these are the kinds of breakthroughs that we will need to eventually get to that point where a VR or AR headset is going to be basically a little bit bulkier than your typical pair of sunglasses, but it's not going to be a huge contraption that is wrapping around your head and taking up all this space, looking kind of goofy and obnoxious. Eventually, we're going to get past that, and we're going to get to the point where it's just a little bit more bulky than your typical sunglasses, but that's it. And so the weight isn't going to be there. You're going to be able to wear it for long periods of time. You're not going to end up with Jeff Gerstmann Oculus face or any of these kinds of things. And so that is huge, absolutely huge, but it's going to take time for this technology to actually filter its way into commercial products. But hopefully, you might think maybe within 5 years, this could filter into the consumer market, and we could see the first VR and AR headsets that will take advantage of these Metalenses. So that is exciting information to be sure. Alrighty, guys, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. This has been episode 67 of the Daily Vlog series. It, of course, is Tuesday, January 2nd, and I will see everybody on Wednesday. So have a great Tuesday. See you tomorrow. Later.